Quality of crowdsourced human input is one of the most crucial aspects that affect the overall utility of the paradigm. However, there are a few challenges that make quality control difficult to orchestrate and guarantee. Crowdsourcing platforms are synonymous with corresponding to a diverse pool of crowd workers with varying motivations for participating and completing work, and these range from trying to earn their primary livelihoods to utilizing this as a secondary source of income for fun and entertainment or for a plethora of other altruistic reasons. Workers also exhibit a wide range of behaviors that makes it difficult to build quality control mechanisms that can work in a generalizable fashion for different types of tasks and different workers. Through prior work in this field, we can broadly categorize cheating techniques into individual attacks or group attacks. Individual crowd workers may attempt to complete tasks while exerting minimal effort by providing random answers or making educated guesses, and perhaps by leveraging bots or scripts to provide automated or semi-automated answers with an aim to maximize their earnings per unit time. Group attacks, on the other hand, can take place through coordinated efforts from crowd workers and crowd worker cohorts. Examples include agreeing on responses or sharing them with other workers, or using multiple bots simultaneously, so on and so forth. At this juncture, it's useful to zoom into this notion of malicious activity in crowdsourcing. Malicious workers can be defined as workers who have ulterior motives, who either simply sabotage a task or provide poor responses in an attempt to quickly attain task completion for monetary gains. It's important to note that this definition only pertains to the activity exhibited by workers within the scope of crowdsourcing tasks, and it's not meant to reflect upon them as individuals in the broader sense of the society. Let's dive further into different behavioral patterns that are exhibited by malicious workers. First up, we have ineligible workers. These are workers who execute tasks despite not meeting the required criteria, rather. For example, imagine you ask workers to complete a given task only if they're proficient in a given language, but then you go on to find that workers who do not fulfill the set criteria executed these tasks nonetheless. Now, this could dilute the utility of the responses that you've gathered. Fast deceivers are workers who aim to maximize their earnings by completing tasks rather quickly. These are by far the most common type of malicious workers, and they typically copy-paste the same response in multiple fields or enter gibberish. They're also relatively easy to inhibit by using simple validators or enforcing constraints on responses. Rule breakers are workers who provide suboptimal input by not fully adhering to instructions. Consider a task where you ask workers to annotate an image with the 5 most salient keywords you would associate with the image. But now consider that workers respond with only 2 or 3 keywords. Depending on how you go on to process or aggregate those answers, such responses can be either partially useful or completely useless. Smart deceivers are workers who adopt strategies to avoid detection by the requesters. Their broad agenda is to minimize their efforts and to complete tasks quickly, but they're aware of all these different ways in which their activity can get flagged and try to go around those. These sophisticated workers are not highly prevalent, but are most difficult to automatically detect. Finally, it's worth mentioning that some workers abide by the instructions provided and contribute valid and useful responses. However, they stumble on certain attention check questions or gold standard questions due to fatigue or boredom. A post hoc analysis of responses can help detect such instances, and the corresponding data can still be used. Quality in crowdsourcing is perhaps the area in the field that has garnered the most amount of research, and for good reason. There are a handful of conundrums that relate to quality after all. Here's a brief peek into some of them. First, even if workers are attempting to complete work to the best of their ability with good intentions, how exactly do we know that they're doing so correctly? How do we know or ensure that workers are doing work thoroughly and responsibly? Can we trust workers not to cheat or sabotage the system? These are some thought-provoking questions.